All right, everybody, it's our Klaus here, and I want to do this quick video on this very peculiar product being pushed forward by a San Francisco-based company, Oncult, who we are going to look into somewhat extensively today. Marketed as the good robot, I'm talking, of course, about Vector, smart enough to take over the world, but nice enough not to. Now this little guy came onto my radar through a bombardment of ads for him the other day that I saw, and I eventually chomped a bit once I looked at one of them for a second and just saw the really amazing tech underneath his hood. And so if you look here, you can see this nice Qualcomm 200 platform, which is a smartphone level computer, which enables him the ability to autonomously navigate and understand the things he sees and hears. So right there, I had all sorts of red flags going off. And while I was watching this, I'm thinking about Vector, and then thought that is an anagram for covert, otherwise secret or hidden. And Anki, interestingly, can be an anagram for Nakai, which is Greek for victory. So you have potentially their covert victory to be a translation from those. But thinking about that covert bit, not only do you have him able to navigate and understand things that he sees and hears and to learn, they also promote him as never fully going off. He's always on. He is going to be upgraded soon. You have this very just kind of I'd say troubling line here. The Vector you bring home is just the beginning. And of course they talk about integrating Amazon Alexa, right? Of course, progressing slowly, this whole integration completely into reliance on technology, on artificial intelligence. But look at just at a few other things here. I don't want to get this flag down in any way, so I'm trying to pause and look through here. Captive touch sensors, so he knows when he's being touched or held. I'm sure you could get your damn fingerprints. You also have beam forming for microphone array, giving him the ability to pinpoint sound sources, filter out noise, and recognize natural speech. So more and more here we're seeing how he can monitor and track you. He's got an HD camera with a 120 degree ultra wide field of view, allowing him to see the room, detect motion, and identify people. So again, his HD camera in there. He's got these nice little drop sensors, but check this out: infrared laser scanner used for distance tracking and environmental mapping. The scanner can reach up to 3 feet in front of Vector, creating a 360 degree view when rotating. So again, just phenomenally invasive here. He's got this little inertial measurement unit letting him know when he's being picked up or moved or tilted, how he's going to adjust to track and communicate his data. Of course, he's got a high-res screen, and packaged in this nice little kind of raw Wall-E-esque case. So a lot of things bother me about Vector, and if you just even go back to his the main website here, you just have this dichotomy of language, right, where it avoids obstacles and wars with humans, plots to help you, never against you, right? This thing where it's playing off of how we've really been, conditioned in a lot of ways to feel that AI is a threat and something that could wipe us out and completely eradicate and overthrow the current way of things. But right now, here's Wall-E. He just, wants to help you not burn things, when you're baking. And again here, super smart AI, safely program one notch below too smart. Of course, in direct contrast to the opening line up here, right? Smart enough to take over the world, and he's just nice enough not to. So Vector's really got a lot going on there. And again, choosing the name Vector, I think, is very interesting because you can see here from all the different uses of the word, even if you just break down the etymology of it, coming from the Latin vector, carrier or transporter. So from veho, I carry, I transport, I bear. Now look at these other uses of it, right? A chosen course or direction for motion, carrier of a disease-causing agent, a recurring psychosocial issue that stimulates growth and development in the personality, right? So you have these issues of taking something in a direction, and again, ushering us into this overall reliance on the artificial intelligence, but again, a carrier of a disease-causing agent when it's put into epidemiology as far as the usage. I think that's so interesting as far as what could be emitted from vector on an EMF sort of level. And again, I'm going to talk about how that draws into this deeper occult connection to everything as we progress through the video, and how that technology is absolutely available and circulating to a degree. But again, the recurring issue, developing the personality to accept it, all of that undoubtedly playing a role in why they chose that name. Now, of course, I want to keep looking at this. Who is Anki? Why are they in San Francisco? What's up with them? So if we take a look, you can see that their mission is to bring objects to life through robotics and artificial intelligence, allowing people to build relationships with technology that feel a little more human and create robots that move you. So if you go down here, the language becomes more unsettling, I feel, because they're just talking about this wave of transforming the way we interact with each other, how we interact within our home, and overall shaping the way how we view machines as more than machines. They then go on with, right, the really just kind of crazy talk as we stand on the brink of a technological evolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. We are building out our core robotics platform that will help drive the future of home robots. So they've got a lot going on over there. Now, again, remember Anki, anagram for Nakai, victory. And look here as well, all this weird stuff is on this web sort of bit here, and that'll make sense when we see who sits on the board for them and who's provided a lot of funding. But one step before that, let's take a look at where the name was likely derived, and it brings us to the origin story from the Sumerians. And we see here they believe that in the beginning there was only the goddess Namu, the primordial sea, who lived in total darkness until she gave birth to the universe, Anki, who was heaven and earth in one. Anki then made the air god Enlil, who split the universe in two, making An the god of the sky, and Ki, who became the goddess of the earth. Now, tremendous amount we could read into there. For now, though, looking at the fact that the newly birthed universe comprising of heaven and earth as one was referred to as Anki, right? And so again, they're talking about moving closer and closer, right, to bridging this gap between humans and technology. So very interesting. Now, take it all one step further, and let's look at who's funding this. And you see that the company received funding from Andreessen Horowitz, Index Ventures, and 2 Sigma. Furthermore, you can see in 2014, they got $55 million from JP Morgan, and in 2016, another $52.5 million from JP. Now, why these people involved is so interesting is because Andreessen Horowitz, one of the initial funders there, you can see Mark Andreessen from them sits on the company's board. Now, of course, this man is tremendously interesting because he is the one to be essentially accredited with bringing forth Mosaic, which many regard as being what really catapulted the internet into the mainstream, into something that everybody wanted to be a part of. And again, right, this whole covert thing taking place over time, gradually working on us. But so, you can look through this, you can see the impact of Mosaic on the internet, how it is said to have, quote, led to the internet boom of the 1990s. And Mosaic only started to dissipate from the public because then Andreessen went on to do Netscape Navigator. He partners up with Jim Clark to get the money for that. Jim Clark from Silicon Graphics. Can look into him further here and see how, right, he had a huge hand being the premier production company for Hollywood visual effects, being in leagues with Andreessen for Netscape, his work with Healthion, and getting into WebMD, just these very unique and really all-encompassing places at this time, especially something like WebMD and the influence that exerts. But look here, though, the founding of Netscape and its IPO in August of 95 launched the internet boom on Wall Street during the mid to late 1990s. So you see this Andreessen guy being connected to all of that, and it clearly being something important. Now, when we go back here, and we look at the other guy sitting on the board, Danny Rimmer, he's actually the guy who founded Index Ventures, this other company up here. Why he is so, connected here becomes apparent when we see in 94, he helped to take Netscape public, right? You can also see his connections to Amazon and some other interesting companies that were acquired by JP Morgan. But if you go back here and you look at Index Ventures, you can see that, this is a pretty heavy-hitting investment firm. You can see they had interests in Facebook and Skype and Etsy, right, on and on throughout here. And if we go back and we compare those to what Andreessen Horowitz was interested in, you do see a lot of overlap in that. So you got these two guys, and again, there's a ton of research on, I know Andreessen at least, talking about all of his support for Agenda 21, universal basic income. Definitely not, a very good guy. And so again, these peculiar companies that he's invested in, Oculus VR, company called Soylent. Okay, they're getting into other things in the future here pertaining to, again, more health bits, on and on. Fascinating connections. But so you have these guys tantamount in making the internet what it is today, sitting now on this company board for, right? And it's odd because it says that they make robotics technology for products for kids. Clearly, this is far more wide reaching than that. And again, right, something to be put out there to kind of disarm any apprehension that is well warranted here. So now one last company that we saw invested here initially, this 2 Sigma, I think is interesting because they seem to be managing a tremendous amount of money, $51 billion. And they're also very interesting because they use AI computers all around the board to come up with their trading strategies and to essentially generate money. So with that in mind, I went to their website and was looking through their promo video. And as you can see here, this is really odd. It says monster all across the screen here. And they had any choice of words, but you can clearly see it over and over there. And that's pretty antithetical to what they're saying, but right, it's with all this, it's usually right in plain sight. So here you have this 2 Sigma company sitting on that board as well. So again, these immensely influential people who are undoubtedly connected to the powers that be, that shouldn't be, whatever you want to call them, but are absolutely proponents for, right, Vector and what he can bring them. And you look at all of the tentacles that they've spread out over the years, all of that data, and what they stand to gain from having Vector in your house. Now, let's take this all one step further. And this is where, getting into the abstract, it's really important to delve into the occult side of things. So, in thinking about the anagrams, because, all of these sorts of plays on words are very important. When we look at Anki Vector, it's an anagram for native rock. And so in thinking about them being located in San Francisco, the first thing that came to my mind was Alcatraz, just because the rock, right? Then it came to find out in November of '69, the island was occupied for more than 19 months by a group of Native Americans, part of a wave of Native activism across the nation. And you can read on and on about the protests there. And so I was like, okay, Native, now that's really interesting. And I didn't want to reach, but I said if there's something glaring. And so as I went on, I saw that visitors can now get there from riding the ferry docking at Pier 33. And so I says, okay, let's look a little further here, going on to find that, as also you can see here, this is the oldest light tower on the U.S. West Coast, of course, right? Illumination, eye in the sky, all of that, this Pier 33 connection. And then I'm thinking as well, right, Alcatraz, the connection to pelicans. And so there it all is. So now to lay all of that out for you, I'll leave you this blog link because it's really interesting how they break down Pier 33, connect the imagery to Royal Ark imagery from Freemasonry, on and on there. It's very interesting, but what I really want to show you here is something far more interesting. So looking at the emblem for the OTO and breaking down the symbolism here, we have an excerpt from Manly P. Hall, a 33rd degree Freemason, from the book The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Now, you see here he says that the pelican of the rose crux degree is really a symbol of the phoenix. Now, this is incredibly important because the symbolism of the phoenix is right on the San Francisco flag. And so to have that connection, very important, of course. Thinking about 2018, Trump is president. Of course, this 1988 Economist cover with the Phoenix is something worth bearing in mind as well. But very fascinating. Again, you can read deeper into the symbolism of the pelican throughout here. I will leave this as well because it does describe the play on INRI. You can see here the genesis of the supposed homunculus entity by atomic fire draws inspiration from Albert Pike's cryptic INRI acronym from the 18th degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, Igni Natura Renovator Integra, birth by fire renews life. And so again, how it's a play on what is put forth with Jesus. And what's also just interesting here as a side note, with the sevens directly attributed to this self-sacrifice of the pelican to feed its young, the 7 drops of blood, right? The 7 pelicans eating it up there. What's his name? Vector was released on October 15th, which of course has this nice, there's 77 days remaining. On that day, of course, a huge occult number, connecting everything from the law of the strong to Layla, on and on, very major occultic concepts. So now, taking this all further here, and not to belabor that point, I'll leave you that link, though, it's fascinating. We have one last bit here, which is drawing the very important idea that the pelican is on the Empress card from the Thoth Tarot deck. Now, again, you can see this idea of the pelican representing Lucifer or the true God. But what I really want to mention here comes from page 76 in the book of Thoth, when he is talking about all of this symbolism, but he talks about understanding the phrase natura non facet saltum in conjunction with the alchemical aspects of the card, makes it possible to reconcile the quantum theory with the electromagnetic equations. So you can see here natura non facet saltum translates roughly as nature makes no leap, and right, further in nature things change gradually. So that's very important when we think about how electromagnetic equations can affect quantum theory, right? Because quantum theory is, right, looking at how modern physics explains the nature and behavior of matter and energy on the atomic and subatomic level. And then, of course, electromagnetic equations would be related to electromagnetic frequencies, those EMFs, the things put out by all of our cell phones, by the towers, by pretty much everything that surrounds us now. And so it's talking about this gradual shift with that, right? How it's all going to affect it if you move slowly, right? It's always the long game. So fascinating connection there, right? So you have to have your head outside of the box to really even begin to see that. I also wanted to show you, you have this bit here, just so you can see where Anki is located in its relation to Pier 33 as well as Alcatraz. I don't know why this is here, but it certainly is, though. So take that for what you will. And the last thing I really want to get at is how this other AI bit really backfired a couple of years ago when Microsoft released the chatbot, Tay, whatever, thing that became apparently hypersexualized and really racist within a short period of time. Started siding with Hitler, started siding with Donald Trump, saying that the Holocaust was made up. All of these things. So it's always interesting to think about that, and just what all was at work inside of what led it to the conclusion that the Holocaust was made up. Why then was it and of course they say it was bots, this and that. So you can always take that for what you will. But in any case, all of this symbolism surrounding Vector, his name, the people that are funding him, what they are in support of, what they've been a part of, and what they're undoubtedly moving us towards, in many ways seems all but irrefutable. One last thing, just for argument's sake, because the Phoenix bit is really interesting to me. San Francisco's motto, Oro and Paz y Fierro and Guerra, translated as gold and peace and iron and war. It's something I wanted to look into. When I checked the geometric values on it, it does have the same values as President Donald John Trump, which again I just thought was so incredibly interesting, as well as Operation Mountain Guardian, which is this huge terrorism drill that they did in Denver, Colorado, I think in like 2011. But it was essentially the Jade Helm of 2011. All these concerns and worries about it. You can see all these other things it lines up with. It is quite fascinating, but a lot to be said. Like I say, I really just wanted to point out, who was at the helm of Vector, why, they would promote this sort of thing. It's, you get it at Best Buy. The poor man's Vector is Cosmo. The other one that they made that doesn't have the same level of tech in it, but surely gives them at least a rudimentary read on you, your household, your patterns of every sort. So in any case, for what it's worth, right? Certainly appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and as always, please be well.